Hey, welcome to Psychology. It's Chapter 8, Thinking in Language. This is Section 1, Understanding Thinking. Thinking is the mental process that allows us to understand the process and communicate information. The basic units of thought include symbols, concepts, and prototypes. There are three kinds of thinking: convergent thinking, divergent thinking, and metacognition. Our main idea for this first section is thinking is the mental activity that allows humans to process, understand, and communicate information. There are three types of thinking: convergent, divergent, and metacognitive. So, in this section, in your note-taking, what you should have is what are some of the basic elements related to thinking. How do the three types of thinking differ? Thinking is the mental activity that is involved in the understanding process and communicating of information. Thinking is made possible through units of thought that includes symbols, concepts, and prototypes. A symbol is an object or an act that stands for something else. Letters and words are symbols, mental images are symbols, and symbols help us think about things that are not present. Concepts. A concept is a mental structure used to categorize objects, people, or events that share similar characteristics. People organize concepts into hierarchies. People learn concepts through experience. Prototypes. A prototype is an example of a concept that best exemplifies the characteristics of that concept. Prototypes help us categorize the world and process information about it. Without prototypes, people might have to examine unfamiliar elements as if they were totally new. So, a good example of a prototype is if I asked you to draw a picture of a bird. So now what you're doing is you draw yourself a picture, and typically what you would draw is a picture of a bird resembling like a robin or a sparrow or something like that. Rarely, somebody might draw something different, like an ostrich or a penguin. They're birds, but they're not really prototypes. In general, people think of three ways: convergent, divergent, and metacognitive. In convergent thinking, thought is limited to facts. We use convergent thinking to find one solution for a problem or a task. Developing rules, following them is one of the example of convergent thinking. Convergent thinking is not particularly creative. Divergent thinking allows the mind to associate more freely to the various elements of a problem. Divergent thinking is at the base of creativity. Divergent thinking typically results in multiple solutions. Metacognition consists of planning, evaluating, and monitoring mental activities. It is thinking about thinking. It has two different aspects: metacognitive knowledge and metacognitive experiences. So of the three kinds of thinking, you use three basic types of thinking. You probably go back and forth from one type to another effortlessly throughout the day. Convergent thinking, the thinker uses just the available facts to find a single best solution for how to get to school. The divergent thinking, here she lets her mind come up with many more options for answering the question. In metacognition, when using metacognition, the thinker considers her own thought processes. Okay, so you're thinking about how you thought about the way to get to school. Automatic thought processes, how we think, has long been interest of psychologists. How much of our thinking is done consciously? Do we really think about every single thing we do? Do we deliberately make choices in all our actions? Current research indicates that the answer is no. Current research indicates that the answer is no. Subconscious thought processes are receiving new attention in the field of psychology. Examples: psychologist John Braw believes that some of our thinking is non-conscious and automatic. Experiments have demonstrated the automatic thought processes. Some researchers call automatic thinking right. Braw suggests that the automatic thought processes are mental butlers that anticipate and take care of some tasks for us without being asked. Section 2, Problem Solving. Problem solving involves a series of processes including analyzing the problem, breaking it into component parts, and establishing goals. Algorithms and heuristics are general approaches to problem solving. There are specific methods of problem solving, including systematic searching, trial and error, difference reduction, and means-ends analysis, working backward, and the use of analogy. The main idea of this section is solving problems can be done in logical, planned ways to achieve the best results. What are the two basic approaches to problem solving? How are certain methods help with problem solving? And why do obstacles to problem solve occur? What is the connection between problem solving and creativity? Algorithms. Algorithms is a specific procedure that, when used properly in the right circumstances, will always lead to the solution of a problem. Mathematical formulas are examples of algorithms. One kind of complex algorithm is a systematic search. Okay, so like if you went to the grocery store to buy milk, and then you would walk up and down every single aisle until you find the milk. A heuristic is an algorithm guaranteed to work, but they're not always practical. This is why people use heuristics for many types of problems. Heuristics are rules of thumb that often, but not always, help us solve problems. They are shortcuts that are faster than algorithms, but they are not always reliable. So, for instance, when you go to the grocery store to buy the milk, you go straight to the back of the store because that's typically where the coolers and things are. And so you're most likely to find it there quickly and easily, but not necessarily. In some stores, they may have them located in a different area. Alright, so here we got some puzzles for you. You have 5 problems to solve. Try solving these problems, and you'll learn the answers as you read the section. Problem is Naomi and Marquita and Kim want to get ready for a party together. The party is across the street from Naomi's house, so they meet there an hour before the party. When they're ready to leave for the party, though, it's raining heavily. None of them wants to get wet, of course, but girls have only one umbrella, and it's big enough to protect only 2 people from the rain. How can all 3 girls get to the party without getting drenched? Problem 2. Imagine that you are a doctor. One of your patients has a brain tumor that must be destroyed. The patient is to survive. Certain rays will destroy the tumor if they are intense enough to reach the tumor. However, the rays need to pass through the healthy tissue that surrounds it at the intensity to destroy the tumor. The rays will also destroy the healthy tissue. How can you use the rays to destroy the tumor without damaging healthy tissue? Problem 3. Trace the dot formation, or copy it exactly onto a sheet of paper. Then connect all 4 dots with 2 straight lines without lifting your pencil from the paper. Problem number 4. You have a box of matches, thumbtacks, and a candle. Imagine you are in a room with a candle, a box of matches, and some thumbtacks. Your task is to use these objects to attach the candle to the wall. How would you do it? Then problem number 5, imagine that you're in a room in which 2 strings are hanging from the ceiling. Your task is to tie the 2 strings together, but they are so far apart they cannot reach both of them. At the same time, the only other object in the room is a pair of safety scissors. How can you tie the strings together? Problem-solving methods. Trial and error are somewhat similar to systematic searching, but more haphazard and less reliable. Difference reduction is a problem-solving method in which we identify our goal, where we are in relation to it, and the direction we must go to move closer to it. The aim is to reduce the difference between a present situation in which the problem is unsolved to a desired situation in which the problem is solved. It's not always a reliable method. Means-ends analysis is a heuristic problem-solving technique. In means-ends analysis, certain things we do, means, will have certain results. Ends focus on the knowledge that a particular action will have a particular result. Working backward involves breaking a problem down into parts and dealing with each part individually. Starts for examining the final goal, then works back to determine the best course of action. Very useful when the goal is known, but the way to achieve it is not. An analogy is a similarity between 2 or more items, events, or situations. When people have successfully solved one problem, they may try to use the same approach in solving another problem if it is similar enough to the first. Mental sets. The tendency to respond to a new problem with the approach that was successfully used in a similar problem is called a mental set. A mental set can get in the way of problem solving. Functional fixedness. Another obstacle to problem solving is called functional fixedness, which is the tendency to think of an object as being useful only for the function that object is usually used for. Functional fixedness can interfere with finding a solution to a problem. Alright, so here's our solutions for problem number 3, is you would draw the line in this way. The solution for problem 4 here is you solve the problem and have overcome functional fixedness and think of the box as a platform, not as a container. And solution to problem 5 is to tie the scissors to one of the strings and set the string swinging, then catch the swinging string. Flexibility is the ability to adapt to new, different, or changing situations. Flexibility leads to original thinking. Recombination is the mental rearrangement of elements of a problem. Insight incubation. Insight gives us sudden understanding of a problem. The incubation effect is the tendency to arrive at a solution after a period of time away from the problem. Alright, section 3, reasoning and decision making. Reasoning is the use of information to reach conclusions. There are 2 main types of reasoning, deductive and inductive. People use a variety of methods to make decisions, including using a balance sheet and some types of heuristics. The main idea in this section is deductive and inductive reasoning are used in decision-making process. The various strategies can help us make decisions. So, what you'd want to answer by the end of this section is, what is deductive reasoning? What are the steps of inductive reasoning? And what can weighing costs and benefits be helpful? And what are some of the shortcuts in decision-making? Deductive reasoning is the use of information to reach conclusions. There are 2 main types of reasoning: deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. In deductive reasoning, the conclusion is true if the premises are true. The premise is an idea or statement that provides the basic information that allows us to draw conclusions. In deductive reasoning, we usually start out a general statement or principle and reason down to specifics that fit the statement or principle. In inductive reasoning, we reason from individual cases or particular facts to reach a general conclusion. In inductive reasoning, the conclusion is sometimes wrong, even when the premises are correct. Even though the inductive reasoning does not allow us to be certain that our assumptions are correct, we use inductive reasoning all the time. Most sciences, including psychology, rely on inductive reasoning. Weighing costs and benefits. Making decisions means choosing among goals or courses of actions to reach goals. When we make decisions, we weigh the pluses and the minuses of possible course of action. Making a balance sheet can help ensure that all available information has been considered. A balance sheet can be helpful when a person is making a decision between two or more alternatives. The availability heuristic can help people make decisions on the basis of available information in their immediate consciousness. Representative heuristics are based on representative heuristic. People make decisions about the same sample according to the population that people's sample appears to represent. The representative's heuristic can be misleading. Availability heuristic. Assessing risks. The availability heuristic allows people to make decisions on judgments based on information that is immediately known to them. This information may or may not reflect reality, however. For example, people visiting a beach may be worried about being killed by a shark because they recently heard about a deadly attack. If you look at the figures at the right, listing select causes of death for the year 2004, how valid is the fear of being killed by a shark? So, causes of death, motor vehicles, 42,836, firearms, 29,258, aircraft, 637, and sharks, 2. So, like, you're pretty safe when swimming in the ocean, apparently. All right. Anchoring heuristics. The anchoring heuristic is the process of making decisions based on certain ideas or standards held by a decision maker. Family traditions, political beliefs, religion, and ways of life are common anchors. Section 4 is language. Language is the communication of ideas through symbols that are arranged according to the rules of grammar. Language contains 3 basic elements: phonemes, morphemes, and syntax. Children everywhere learn language in the same sequence of steps. Heredity, environment, and both affect language and learning. Bilingualism is the ability to understand and speak 2 or more languages. A main idea, language is a complex human activity that allows humans to communicate with others over time and space. It has specific elements, and people acquire language in specific steps. So in this section, your goal is to take notes on what are some basic concepts of language, how do basic elements of language build on each other, what are the stages of language development, and why is bilingualism a significant aspect of modern society? So, language is the communication of ideas through symbols that are arranged according to the rules of grammar. Language makes it possible for people to share knowledge. The psychology of language is called psycholinguistics. The natural tendency to acquire language can be called language acquisition device. The language acquisition device enables the brain to understand and use grammar to turn ideas into sentences. Most people are capable of acquiring language from about 18 months of age to puberty. It was Noam Chomsky who was the one who proposed the idea of the language acquisition device. Environmental influences. Children learn language partly by observing and imitating other people. Children acquire the language from their parents and then pass them down to their children. In this manner, language is passed with small changes from generation to generation. Phonemes are the basic sounds of language. English uses about 43 phonemes, including some that are not found in other languages. Morphemes, the units of meaning in a language, are called morphemes. Morphemes are made up of phonemes. Syntax, the way in which words are arranged to make phrases and sentences, is syntax. The rules for word order are the grammar of a language. Semantics. The study of meaning in language is called semantics. Semantics involves the relationship between language and the objects depicted in the language. Stages of language development. The first stage of language development is crying, cooing, and babbling. Crying is an effective form of verbal expression for infants. Infants begin to coo during their second month of age. Infants begin to babble at about 6 months of age. Crying, cooing, and babbling are basic human abilities. Babies understand much of what other people are saying before they learn to talk. Words. The learning of words is the start of true language development. Most early words are nouns. Research indicates that reading to children increases their vocabulary. The first things children say are usually brief, but they have grammar. Most children are nearing 2 years old will begin to use two-word sentences. Two-word sentences usually show understanding of grammar. Children make language errors because of over-regularization. So here on this chart we see the stages of language development. The graph shows the span of ages at which most babies develop some language skills. How might a doctor use this graph to calm parents who are worried about their child's language development? So, at 0 to a month, they make vocalizations. At 3 months, they start squealing and laughing. At 4 months, they start turning to voices. At about 4 months, they begin to imitate speech sounds. At about 6 or 7 months, they'll say dada, mama, that kind of sound. They begin jabbering at this period as well. By the time they reach roughly 9 months, they're beginning to use one word. By a year, they're starting to use 3 words. A year to 18 months. And at about 14 months to 22 months, their vocabulary will be about 6 words. Bilingualism. Bilingualism is the ability to speak 2 languages fluently. That is what it is to be bilingual. In general, learning a second language during childhood is earlier than learning it in later life. The bilingual population of the United States is growing. Many people in other countries speak 2 or more languages. Most psychologists believe that bilingualism is good for a child's cognitive development. By 2100, about half of the world's 7,000 or so languages are likely to have disappeared. As a result, the information about cultures, their history, and their environment, it will disappear as well. And the different ways that people think will disappear. Languages die as the few remaining people who speak them die. Languages are disappearing most rapidly in 5 regions. 2 of these regions are in the upper Pacific coast and the southwest. One reason languages die out is because of the influence of predator languages. When language is lost, so is an entire culture. Different ways of thinking and different ways of using language are also lost. Many countries are working to save and revive dying languages. That completes our study of Chapter 8. Hopefully you understand all the new concepts of thinking and language.